it's not like the men didn't have a remarkable finish in a Final Four game. They did. And maybe it's just because it's San Diego State over Florida Atlantic, and that we would have been leading this here contest if the contest was North Carolina beating Duke at the final buzzer. And we would be talking about, Coach K or whatever. Name another blue blood. John Calipari, man. Oh, man, this Bill Self guy just had a timeout in his pocket, but he had only his best defenders on the floor because Florida Atlantic had just scored, or they just had an offensive set and they called timeout, put their best defenders they had on the floor, and they didn't have their best offensive players on the floor. And with time ticking down and a timeout in the back pocket, Brian Dutcher let the clock run. And the ball wound up in the hands of Lamont Butler. And yes, the Butler did it.
Lamont.
Ew.
Lamont hit the big one.
Lamont, you big dummy.
He hit the big one. With time running out, he
amazing. Look at that picture.
Releases
Chris.
and fires and hits nothing but net.
Couldn't believe it.
And San Diego State advances.
Oh, that was amazing. That was so much
and
fun.
Their magic carpet ride continues. And Butler said after the game that his sister, Sasha, who was shot and killed in January of 2002, he felt as if she was with him on that shot. And Florida Atlantic's magic carpet ride, they were up double digits in that game, and they looked like they had it in the bag. And San Diego State kept on rebound. The number of offensive rebounds the Aztecs had, they had one possession where they got the ball, I think, 5 different times. And both teams struggled scoring towards the end of that game, but it came down to the final shot. And the Aztecs move on. And it looked like the first seed that was 9 or worse playing in a national semifinal game would finally get a win. They were 0-8 prior to Florida Atlantic taking the floor on Saturday. And it looked like we'd finally get that first win in that column. And instead, their 9 seeds or worse are now 0-9 in a national semifinal. Wow. What a way for the Owls season to finally end.
What a run.
And for Brian Dutcher, the head coach of San Diego State basketball, who we had on last week. And if you missed it, it was such a terrific conversation because we spent most of it on his journey. And his journey began when Bill Frieder in 1989 said, I'm out. I'm leaving Michigan to go to coach Arizona State. And Bo Schembechler, who was the athletic director at the time of Michigan, was so angry about it, said to Bill Frieder, you're not coaching this team anymore. You're not coaching the tournament and leaving us. I want a Michigan man coaching the Michigan Wolverines. I want a Michigan man coaching a Michigan team. And he turned to Steve Fisher, who had just been hired, like he was a real Michigan man. And Steve Fisher gets thrown in to the mix, and they win 6 games in a row and win the national championship and cut down the nets. And an assistant on that bench on that night who was with Steve Fisher on that night and with Michigan the rest of Steve Fisher's tenure from the Fab Five all the way through to the end, and then went with Steve Fisher to San Diego State as an assistant all the way to tonight. Brian Dutcher is going to try and cut down the nets on UConn on, wait for it, the anniversary of Michigan's win over Seton Hall in 1989 to start it all. Because I can guarantee you, I am sure of this, if Michigan had lost, Mike, to your Seton Hall Pirates on this night in 1989,
Yep.
So you could do the math, that's 34 years ago tonight. If they had lost that, there's no way Bo would have stuck with Steve Fisher and Brian Dutcher, and who the heck knows what their journey would have been with the Fab Five. Would never have formed, I don't think. And Dutcher would not maybe have gotten the opportunity to go to San Diego State, and would not have gotten the opportunity to succeed Steve Fisher at San Diego State and stand on that sideline tonight, 34 years later. Oh, my God. How big were Ramil Robinson's 2 free throws? I'm sorry, Mike. 34 years ago tonight.
I remember it.
And 34 years later, Brian Dutcher's trying to do it as a head coach, Can't make it up. Against UConn, which is now in its 5th national championship game, all since 1999. 10 years after Brian Dutcher and Steve Fisher and Glenn Rice and Ramil Robinson cut down the nets in Seattle against Seton Hall. Can't make it up. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.